everybody. Welcome to our Thursday afternoon webinar, or it could be morning, depending where you're joining from. My name is Megan Brown. I'm the director of Two Bright Lights, and I am joined by Leah Weinberg, who is all the things, lead planner, owner, founder of ColourPop Events. Fair warning, we're probably going to laugh a lot because that's sort of what we do, but it's going to be great. You're going to learn so much. I cannot wait to hear all about automating your boutique wedding business. All the things.
All the things. Dropping lots of info today. Be sure to leave us some questions in the chat. We'll do a Q&A at the end.
Absolutely. All right. So without taking up more,
great.
Let's go. All right.
All right, perfect. So hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about automating your boutique wedding business. Super fun topic, I know. Actually, give us just 1 second. We're trying to get the screen share going. Okay, good. We're good. Gotta love technology. So anyway, I get asked a lot about sort of how I landed on this topic. And people always ask if I love weddings, and my response is always, I love running a business, like really love running a business. So because of that, I love learning about business strategies, talking about business strategies, and reading about business strategies. And on the recommendation of someone forever ago, I read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And if you haven't read that book, let me give you a quick recap. The overarching message is that you need to prep your business as if you were going to franchise it. In other words, you have to have all sorts of systems and processes in place so that you could just give someone a handbook for your business and they could run it just like you would. That particular book made me take a hard look at my business and what systems and processes I needed to implement. And it's something I've been passionate about chatting with other small business owners about because it's something I believe can really help save people time and money with their business. So before we dive in, I want to just mention that today we're kind of thinking about automation in two ways. Number one, having systems and processes in place to make sure that tasks get completed. And second, completing tasks without you having to do anything. So let's talk about, should you be automating in the sense of making things happen on their own without you actually having to do anything? So in order to make this decision, you have to ask yourself a few questions. Number one, how much volume does your business do? If you do a ton of volume and have a ton of clients, it might make sense to make things automatic so that they can happen without you having to do them. How busy are you both in and out of your business? If you tend to have extra time, then possibly automating may not be the right thing for you. How new is your business? What's your experience level? If you're fairly new, then you might find a lot of value in doing some of these tasks yourself and not automating them. What are your organizational skills like? If you are super organized, then it might make sense just to have systems and processes. But if you feel that you're lacking in the organizational skill department, it could make sense to make things happen automatic. Also, whether you have a high-touch business or not. If it is a high-touch business and you want to make sure you're the one being in contact with your clients, that might lean towards not wanting to automate. But regardless of your answers to these questions, you have to have certain workflows, processes, and systems in place. And why do you need to have these systems in place? Number one, to work smarter and not harder. For example, if you can save yourself a little time by having template responses to certain types of emails that you can simply copy and paste rather than having to craft a brand new response each time, that's going to save you time and brain power. Number two, to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. You don't want to miss a deadline on something or forget to send someone an invoice so that you can get paid. And number three, to grow and scale your business. You want to get these systems in place in the beginning and not once you get so busy that you're finding yourself playing catch up. For example, I have a friend who has a newer business, and when I asked him how he remembers to send people final invoices, he says he just remembers. He doesn't have a calendar reminder or CRM to remind him, and that's fine when you're starting out and you have 5 clients, but when you have 50, there's no way that you're going to just remember to do things. So it's best to get these practices in place now. Let's talk about the general pros and cons of making things automatic and not just systematized. There is definitely a lot of emotion surrounding automation in terms of the pressure to work smarter and not harder, which I know is also super cliche. the pressure to automate your business in order to free up your own time, the pressure to automate your business to be able to work with people with smaller budgets. So you're kind of getting a lot of input from a lot of different places when making something automatic in terms of you not doing anything may not actually be the right choice for you. So when deciding whether to automate, it's important to realize that there's not one universal solution that's going to work for everyone. And as I mentioned before, it's going to depend on whether you have a high-touch business, how much volume you do, how much free time you have, on your organizational skills. So it's going to be important to figure out what works best for your business. One of the pros of making things automatic is that obviously it's going to save you time. It's also going to make you more efficient. Some of the cons are you might feel overwhelmed with the different options there are. So CRM is a customer relationship management tool, things like Salesforce, Honeybook, Aisle Planner, all those different types of things. And people might feel overwhelmed about picking which option works for them. But you also may end up feeling out of touch with what's going on in your business if you're not the one doing these certain tasks. So let's talk about what tasks can be systematized or made automatic. And to determine what processes and workflows you need to implement in your business, you should take a look at what tasks you are often repeating. For all of us, there are incoming inquiries. My suggestion to you is to have one place where you're directing all of your inquiries so that you can respond from that one platform. For most people, that's going to be either email or a CRM tool. For example, it's not efficient to be carrying on inquiry conversations in Instagram messages and via email and via the Knot or Wedding Wire's messaging system. You're also going to want to figure out how to respond to these initial inquiries. A lot of people consider automating this process by using an autoresponder. And I feel like that can be a somewhat polarizing thing because some people like auto responses. Some people don't like auto responses. If you have a really high volume business and individual responses don't really make sense, then having an auto responder could be perfect for you. There are also some people who want to weed out price shoppers or answer commonly asked questions in advance. So an auto responder works really well for them. For example, I have a friend who is a stationer and she has an autoresponder to all of her inquiries that provides a ton of initial information, some pricing information, and also a link to her calendar to set up a meeting. So that saves her a ton of time from having to answer all of those people individually. For me, I don't personally have an autoresponder because I haven't hit the point where I feel like I don't have the time to respond to inquiries. But for me, since I don't make my responses automatic, I do have a few different templates that are going to save me time that I can just copy and paste whenever I want to respond to these initial inquiries. But also remember, if you do have the copy and paste, it is nice to customize it some so that people feel like it is actually a warm human being responding on the other end. So now that you've gotten these inquiries in, let's talk about, and you've responded to them initially, let's talk about the follow-up of these inquiries. How often are you going to follow up? And that's going to depend on your particular business. So follow-up can be done automatically with a CRM. Sometimes it's a template response that you have the CRM send out after a week. Sometimes it's just a simple ping to let a prospective client know that their proposal is expiring in X number of days. Depending on your CRM, you can craft this automatic follow-up to go to read however you'd like. But at the very least, even if you aren't going to have an automatic follow-up, you have to systematize this process. And so for me, what I do is I have a Google Calendar reminder every Monday morning at 9 a.m. that says follow up on leads so that I make sure that I'm checking in with any open inquiries on a weekly basis. You also need to be tracking your leads. So whether it's with a CRM or manually like an Excel spreadsheet, at any given moment, you have to have a snapshot of how many open inquiries you have, where you are in the follow-up process with those inquiries, where people are finding you. I think this category is of particular importance because you need to know where these inquiries are coming from. You've got to be able to figure out what marketing methods are working best and what you should be investing your time and money in. So for example, are Instagram ads or Facebook ads getting you leads? Is one vendor directory producing more inquiries than another? This is all information that's going to help you make marketing decisions in the future. This spreadsheet or your CRM should also show how many inquiries you've generated to date, so you can kind of compare how business is going year over year. And you should also be tracking what's happening with the leads that you're not converting. So are you not booking the business because of pricing? Are you just being ghosted? Are they hiring somebody else? Or were you already booked? If you are tracking this information and you start to see a lot of inquiries that you had to turn down where you're already booked, that's a great conversation starter in terms of whether it's time to expand your team. And also with ghosting, I feel like there are ways to craft responses to some of those emails to try to get a response out of somebody. I know in talking with couples, they feel really badly about turning people down. And I've had to explain to them that, like, we're in this business, we get turned down a lot. So we just really want to know either way so that we can stop bugging people. So there's ways to kind of phrase your follow-up emails in order to get responses. Next is client onboarding. You've got to have a process for what happens when you book a new client. If you use a CRM, then you're going to want to add the client's details there and also schedule dates for certain things to happen, like sending invoices. I personally have a client onboarding checklist that I go through every time I book a new client. And so for me, that checklist includes saving a fully executed of their contract to their folder, updating my income spreadsheet to include their deposit and their final payment, adding the following dates into my Google Calendar. So their wedding date, the date and time of their rehearsal, what date I send a final invoice, when to do a final confirmation with all their vendors, when to send a thank you note, when to ask for a review. And one of the things that I've even started adding is adding in an annual reminder of the couple's anniversary. So that's kind of an added service bonus because I'm being pinged every time it's one of my couple's anniversaries. So I can reach out, say hello, but it's also a good reminder because if I happen to be needing Instagram content, I can post a photo from their wedding and wish them a happy anniversary on social media. I will also say that adding these wedding dates into your CRM or your Google Calendar, whatever calendar you use, is going to help you from double booking yourself, which can be a problem. Sometimes will happen from time to time as you're starting out and don't quite have a system in place. So with client onboarding, I live by the rule that everything needs to be written down so that you don't have to remember anything. Next, you should be tracking your income and expenses. So if I had a universal wish for all of you, it would be that I could wave a magic wand and make the bookkeeping, accounting, taxes process so much less scary and painful. If you're a business entity that requires you to be paying quarterly taxes, then you should be paying quarterly taxes. Your accountant can make this really easy for you, and you can actually automate this process by having the amounts automatically deducted from your bank account. But regardless, you need to have a good grasp on your income and expenses in order to be estimating what these quarterly tax payments should be. So for tracking income and expenses, this is the one area where I strongly suggest that you use a tool. I personally use GoDaddy Bookkeeping, which every time I talk about GoDaddy Bookkeeping, everyone is like, oh, GoDaddy has an accounting software program? Yes, they do, and it's actually really easy and intuitive to use, and I highly recommend it. But my GoDaddy Bookkeeping is linked to my business debit card, my business credit card, and PayPal account so that every transaction is automatically added to my income and expense reports there. I also save all of my receipts and write a descriptive note on them before I put them away for filing. And then at the end of every month, I reconcile my receipts against what's in GoDaddy Bookkeeping and add in the descriptions there. It can take maybe 30 minutes a month, which is really not bad. So I promise this is why it shouldn't be that scary for you. And depending on the size of your business, if you can get in the habit of keeping your receipts organized and doing these reconciliations monthly, it's going to make this a much more bearable process for you. And because I'm a super numbers nerd, I also track all of my income and expenses manually. So that includes my personal expenses and my business expenses. The reason I track my expenses manually is because I can break down the numbers into even more detailed categories in an Excel spreadsheet than I can on the GoDaddy online platform. I also like being able to check everything by just opening up an Excel spreadsheet rather than having to log on to GoDaddy Bookkeeping. I track my income manually because I want to see a snapshot of the money I've already collected for the year and what I have on the books for the rest of the year but hasn't actually come in. So why is it critical to have a solid understanding of your income and expenses at any given point in the year? There's a few reasons. First, it can help you with hiring decisions. You have to know your numbers in order to make determinations of whether to hire someone or outsource certain work. Frankly, you just need to know if you can afford it. You need a budget for it. You need to understand what the monetary payoff of bringing in help could be. I really believe that it's very powerful for us to have knowledge of our money situation. Money is such an emotional topic that if we can manage it successfully, it's going to make us feel more empowered and confident. Also, tracking your finances is going to help you set goals. It also gives you joy when you hit those goals. So my tracking spreadsheet lists my income totals for all the years that I've been in business. So I can see at what point in the current year I've surpassed the prior year's income. And when something like that happens, it feels absolutely amazing. I can also easily track how many weddings I need to book in a year in order to hit my sales goals. Also, doing all of this tracking, as daunting and annoying as it may seem, it's going to allow you to make real-time changes. So if you've spent too much in one expense category, you can scale back the next month. So for example, if you're looking at your personal expenses and you've seen that you're doing way too much takeout, you can kind of cut back in that area. For a business, if you see that you're taking way too many Ubers or Lyfts going to and from events, you can try to scale back in that area. All of this tracking is also going to help you create a realistic budget for the following year. So even though I'm trying to make this easy for you, I understand that there can be a time when you just have to outsource your bookkeeping. If it's really not for you, you should consider it. If you can't, like if you're just really terrible with numbers, if you just can't fit the time in, then maybe considering outsourcing it. But I promise if you try to keep on top of all of this stuff monthly, it's going to make it a lot more easy to handle. So getting back to the tasks that can be systematized or made automatic, there is also invoicing. So invoicing is something that can easily be automated through your CRM or invoicing program. But regardless, it should definitely be systematized if you plan to invoice people manually. So for example, creating a calendar reminder when you need to be sending out your invoices. There's also the question of automating the downtime in the planning process. So for planners, we should all have a system for checking in. I personally have calendar reminders to check in with my couples every 3 weeks so that there's not a huge gap of time that they're never not hearing from me. For non-planners, you can figure out a way to check in and potentially add value during the downtime. So for example, photographers could check in several months out for the wedding, say hello, send a link to one of their new galleries that they think the couple might enjoy. Or if you're a venue, you could check in at the halfway point during the planning process and just congratulate them on making it through the halfway point. There's definitely ways to figure out how these kind of systems and processes are also going to add value to your clients. The last task I wanted to mention is requesting reviews. So the review request process should be systematized and it can be automated if you want to, though I personally feel like an automated request for a review can come off a little cold. I personally do the review request process manually. I've got a calendar reminder for after the wedding. You could also theoretically send an automatic message to be sent at a certain time through your CRM. So I always get asked, when is the best time to ask for reviews? And the answer to that is it's not universal for everyone, and it's going to be different for every profession. And even among different vendors, we all might do it differently. So I personally wait a month after the wedding. My logic is I don't want to do it too soon. If they're on their honeymoon and getting an email from me, that might put them off. We've just been talking endlessly. So I feel like they might need a little bit of a break. But I feel like if I wait any longer than a month, the glow of the wedding might start to fade. So that's what I've identified as kind of the sweet spot for me. If you're a photographer or a videographer, obviously you can't ask for a review until you've delivered the photos or the video. So you're going to be waiting longer after the wedding to do that process. And my advice is to be just really genuine when asking for a review. I've seen wedding vendors include a request for a review before the wedding even happens, and I personally think that's a little bit tacky. I also suggest only asking for a review once. I don't think you're probably going to get really great results if you're having to hound somebody to get back to you for a review. There's also the question of who to ask for reviews from. Obviously, you're going to ask for reviews from couples who've had positive experiences with your company. And sometimes you may actually want to take that a step further and only ask people that are going to be really enthusiastic in their review for you. A 5-star review is great, but if the copy associated with it is dull, it's not going to have as much of an impact as something that's just super effusive and enthusiastic about how great it was to work with you. How to ask for these reviews. I have found that it's helpful when emailing couples to highlight the fact that reviews are really like currency for small businesses, and reviews are able to tell the story of a client experience more than any photo can. This is particularly true for wedding planners because our work is not, unless we're doing design, our work is not visual. So photos might look pretty, but it's the words behind a review that's really going to convey what it was like to work with us. What happens when you get negative feedback? So this is one of the questions that comes up a lot also. If it's a legitimate negative review, then you might want to consider responding, whether that's in public or private. If you do decide to respond, I encourage you to take the time to calmly and thoughtfully craft a response and not just send a knee-jerk reaction to that kind of review. If it happens that the review is actually not legitimate, which I know happens, there's spammy things that happen with like Facebook reviews and Google and all that stuff. If you are not able to get the review taken down, then my suggestion would be to try to rally some friends, other vendors, previous clients to flood your site with positive reviews. All right, so as we wrap up, I want to give you all a few to-dos that you can take home with you today. So first thing is to take an honest look at your business and your strengths and weaknesses and see, what is realistic for you to do yourself? What do you need to be automating? Also, ask yourself the questions that I mentioned previously. How much volume does your business do? How busy are you both in and out of your business? How new is your business? What are your organizational skills like? And do you have a high-touch business? And you really need to be honest when doing this because it's not going to serve anybody if you think that you can take on a particular task, but it's really not ideal for you. Again, figuring out what's right for you and your business. It's not the same for everybody. Take a look at your business and figure out what tasks you do repeatedly. Those are going to be the ones that are ripe for automation. And determine whether you want things just systematized in terms of having a process and workflow behind it, or whether you want to actually make them automatic where you don't have to do anything to make them happen. And the last thing is, after you've done this audit, is to create a strategy and implement some of these processes. So that's all I've got for you today. Here is all of my information. I would love to continue the conversation with all of you. If you would like a copy of the presentation and some more resources, you can text the word ColorPop to 444999 and I can get all of that info over to you. So now I think it's time for some questions.
Yeah, so we're gonna turn the video back on. Let's see. Stop sharing. Awesome. Okay, we're back. Hi. Yay. With a tree. Isn't this lovely?
One fern between us rather than two ferns.
Exactly. Okay, so wow, that was awesome.
That was a lot of information.
So if you had to pick one place to start, what would you prioritize? Like, where would you even begin?
I think the two big things that I think to focus on is the inquiry process and kind of making sure that you have a good system for handling those. I know a lot of people complain that like they're getting questions from everywhere. Some people get them like on Facebook Messenger. Yeah. But then there's also your personal Facebook Messenger, your business one, which doesn't always show up. So I think streamlining all of those inquiries to one place and kind of making it clear, like I've seen some people put in their Instagram bios, like please no DMs, email for inquiries only, just because you've got to make it easy for you to be responding to all of that. So I think that's helpful. And then the financial part of it, I mean, everybody kind of hates dealing with money and talking about money, but
Yes.
you've got to be organized, because being organized and feeling in control of that is going to give you a lot of power in your business, I think.
Yeah. And I like your point about the inquiries, because it's always a struggle too to respond as quickly as possible. And if you're trying to do it in a million different places,
Exactly.
it's so easy to miss one.
Right.
Millennials, they all want to be responded to so quickly.
But yeah, and then tracking the inquiries too. If you've got them in 5 different places, it's hard to know what you've got open. So like having a spreadsheet or using a tool that's going to have those all outlined for you, so you know where you are in the follow-up process. So just as a quick example, like I track everything in Excel spreadsheet. If I get an inquiry on a Sunday and I'll respond, and then my usual follow-ups is on Monday, well, I'll see in my spreadsheet that this inquiry just came in on Sunday. I won't follow up with them as part of my weekly thing, because I don't want to bombard them, obviously. But you have to have all that information in place so that you know, like, when your last conversation was, or if they tell you follow up with me in like 3 weeks, so that you're not automatically following up with them in a week, is really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So this is a great question. How do you leverage reviews? So requesting reviews is obviously an important thing.
Yeah.
Like, I know as anytime we're going to look, like as just normal consumers, to look at a service or a product, I check reviews constantly. Yep. So how do you make them really pop?
Again, figuring out who your best clients are to ask for reviews from. So like there's, sometimes people are just not like, there's people that are like rah-rah cheerleader personalities, other people that might be more reserved. I feel like in getting and working with couples and in getting to know them, you understand their personality some. And so you kind of know who is going to just like give you an out of the park amazing review versus one that like they might give you 5 stars, but it might not be great. I was actually just telling somebody this morning, they were one of my favorite couples, and we're still friends like after the wedding and stuff, but the groom and not the bride wrote the review. And it was a 5-star review, but it was like 3 sentences of kind of like the most kind of stuff. But if that's mixed in with like some of these more like really raving reviews, I think it makes a huge difference. But definitely using your reviews to point people to them. Like when inquiries come in, you can just send a link to your profiles that have the reviews on them. Highlighting them on Instagram, I know, is a really great thing too. So people kind of see them coming in. It's just making them like getting good reviews and making them public and really visible to people, I think is really important.
Do you ever pull any quotes and put them like on your website or anything like that?
I do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I also have, so sometimes I will get like couples will write me emails or parents will thank me. And I have a whole separate Word document where I've like copied and pasted those. So if I wanted to use those somewhere else, I could also.
That's great.
Yeah.
Keep all the things.
Keep all the things. Yeah.
Can you tell she tracks everything?
Yes. And I do it manually. So like, I think that, one of the questions that I get a lot when I've done this presentation is which tool do I use? And I admittedly have to say that I use my Google Calendar, I use Microsoft Word, and I use Excel spreadsheets. And that's kind of how I organize everything.
I mean,
but that's not for everybody.
No.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I would do if Google Calendar disappeared.
Oh yeah. Big problem. Yeah.
I would just curl up into a ball. And like my world would be over.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I'm supposed to be in like the next 20 minutes.
No, so, I know. Same. Yeah. Or where I'm going. Yeah. I'm like, I'll figure out where the next location is like from the
Google's even
location.
Supposed to tell me what time I'm supposed to leave.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, we rely on them
a
lot.
I know. We use it the same way.
Okay. So another question talking about reviews. So some clients never respond. It's just part of the process. And do you let it go or do you follow up?
If they
don't respond,
let it go. I learned that lesson once where I very early on pushed somebody, like I didn't know any better. And so I followed up with a couple who I thought was really happy and pushed for a review like multiple times, and then the review was kind of less than stellar. So I think that's like, that goes back to the point of making sure that people that are really enthusiastic about your business are responding. So like, if you ask somebody to do a review and they actually do it for you, then that means that like they absolutely loved you. They want to support your business. And if they don't respond, it's not necessarily that they didn't have a good experience or that they don't want to support you. But I think you'll find that like the people that respond either do it unprompted, or the people that respond after that first inquiry, those are going to be your best ones. So pestering people, I don't think is going to get you.
Yeah.
Which kind of stinks, because for like planners that don't have a ton of volume, like in order to qualify for some of the year-end awards, you have to have a certain number.
Right.
So it can honestly be a little challenging to sometimes hit that number.
Yeah. So that brings a question that I have.
Yes.
So when you're working with a client, actually I have two questions. So you're trying to get to know them. You become friends with a lot of them. Do you use questionnaires as part of your process at all?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I know a lot of photographers do, like photographers, videographers do. That's a topic I've talked on with a lot, because a lot of times for photo and video questionnaires, I, as the planner, am the one that end up filling all those out. Or like sometimes they come towards the end of the process and they're just so long that they're overwhelming. But I think it can be helpful. It really just depends on how you operate. I usually, when I onboard a client shortly after they've booked me, I'll do an in-person meeting with them and kind of, if they're brand new, you know, like we'll talk about budget and style and stuff. If they're a little further along in the process, I go through like my checklist to see what they've done. So I essentially get the same information that a questionnaire would. I just do it in person or over the phone or via email. And
given that you're the planner, you're probably with them through a lot of the other like pro hiring process.
Yeah.
So it's not like you need to know everybody that they've already hired.
Right.
Because they've probably not hired.
Yeah. And also stuff kind of comes out too. Like along the way, you'll hear about family dynamics. Like I know a lot of photo questionnaires have questions about family dynamics and like, is there anything people should be aware of? If I'm working with a couple for like a year and a half, those family dynamics tend to come out. I meet the family in advance sometimes. So, you know, as planners, you're exposed to like a lot more of the information than people who aren't working with them like on a day-to-day basis.
So client experience is also a big thing that people talk about. Do you have any sort of like thank you gifts or anything that you do as part of your process?
Yeah, I do. I just recently started doing like once a client has booked me, like sending a little thank you gift at that point. Usually it's just candy, because I feel like everybody kind of loves food and sugar. And then afterwards, like the day after the wedding, I'll send a thank you, like a handwritten thank you note to them. A lot of times, like if they're on their honeymoon, they don't get it right away, but it's sitting there waiting for them when they get back.
That's great.
So those are just like little touches. I think you need to do, my advice to everybody else is to kind of do what feels right for you. I know some people do like more lavish, like welcome gifts or like branded things and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of figuring out like what your target client would like and then doing that.
Yeah, that's smart.
But that is part of, so like that onboarding checklist that I mentioned, like part of that is now like adding a gift.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've also found the anniversary thing. So putting their anniversary, like what I mentioned, putting anniversaries into your Google Calendar. Yeah. Because then like they get a nice note from you, or you write on like their Facebook wall or something, happy anniversary. And they're like, oh, that's amazing, you remembered. And then you like, again, become fresh in their mind. So it's all about like, it's about the client service and the client experience.
Absolutely. Because also those referrals are gold.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. So what would you say was the most challenging part of automating your business, or continues to be?
Kind of breaking it all down and figuring out what all of the elements are, because it does take sort of sitting down and analyzing what it is that you're doing, and like doing things repeatedly and then maybe forgetting something and that kind of thing. So like really the detail and analysis of figuring out like, okay, what exactly is part of my process? What am I doing every single time so that I have a checklist of things so nothing slips through the cracks? It's one of those things too that it's constantly changing. So as like, again, the anniversary thing was something I recently added. Adding people to like a certain checklist reminder is new, and after every wedding, like if something negative happens and you miss something, then that's going to go on your checklist for next time so that you don't forget.
And I think also, we all need to prepare for the unexpected. Knock on all the wood around, but like you hope that nothing's going to happen, but there's always a chance that there's an emergency that could happen and someone else needs to step in and like be able to do it for you. And by you having these processes in place, it would make that a whole lot easier.
Yeah. And so one of the newer things that I've been doing, because I wasn't as good about it in the past, was the week of the wedding, like the Monday, I've added a calendar reminder where I confirm with whoever's working with me on the wedding that weekend. And then I send them the current version of like my whole day of packet, the floor plans and all that stuff, so that if anything happened like over the course of that week, someone is there and can like read through this and like execute. I mean, that's it's like I create my wedding sort of like the E-Myth talks about creating the business. So making it so that somebody could step in with the information you give them. So like I'm basically handing off, I have a wedding handbook for each couple and give that to my assistant at the beginning of the week in case something happens. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
And because you do that, nothing will happen.
Hopefully.
Okay. Let's see. So what's the favorite thing about what you do?
Doing stuff like this, talking to other business owners about the business side of things. I mean, it is really super nerdy, I admit it, but I just kind of like love this part. I mean, obviously weddings are rewarding. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. Like my favorite parts of the day of a wedding are the ceremony. Those usually get me. And then like kind of towards the end of the night when it's like everybody's happy. You've seen all of this come together. Like those are the best parts of the wedding. But then from a business perspective, just like running a business that is successful and has clients and stuff and figuring out marketing strategies and thinking about all this stuff is like, I love it. It's so nerdy. I love it.
It's okay. I'm a dork. It's fine. Okay. So this is a good question. How do you feel about people reaching out to a brand or to other pros about collaboration?
I think it's great. I think it's important how you phrase it and how you do it depending on who you're reaching out to. I mean, a great example is like reaching out to other vendors for styled shoots and things like that, or just reaching out just to kind of create relationships in general. I think it's got to come from a genuine place and not a place of just wanting people's business. I talk a lot about getting cold emails from wedding vendors that are just like, hey, add me to your preferred vendor list. Okay, thanks, bye. Like nothing, like no information, no,
not even like coffee.
No coffee. They just want like right into the business. But I think also reaching out to brands is great too. And again, doing it in a way that's organic. Like if it's a brand that you really love and you approach them, your energy and like appreciation for that brand is going to come through when you reach out. But don't just reach out to somebody because you're like, oh, this brand is really hot right now. Like I want to do something with them. You've got to make sure that it feels right for you. You've got to be genuine about it. And in my experience with asking people to collaborate on stuff, people are so more generous than you could ever imagine if you go about things in the right way. Yeah. So like, I think if you approach it genuinely, people are going to have a really good response.
That's good. And since Leah mentioned styled shoots, you may remember if you've been watching for a while, God, I don't even know how long ago it was.
That was like 2 years ago.
Wow. So we actually did another webinar together all about styled shoots, great information. So we'll make sure that we include that link in our recap email, but you can also find it on our YouTube channel. So make sure you find that and watch it because it's so much great info in there.
Yeah, I've done a ton of styled shoots also. So like if you want to email me about styled shoot questions, I can answer those all day long too.
Awesome. So if you're not using a CRM, are you automating or able to with the emails or check-ins through Gmail? Is that possible? Are you just setting reminders? How's that work?
Yeah, it's all sort of like calendar reminders of when to do stuff, when to be checking. Like I said, I have reminders for when to follow up on my leads weekly. Every several weeks, it's a follow-up with all of my clients to like refresh, not just like sort of say hi, but to like go through their checklist, see what they should be working on, send them just a quick email to see like what they're doing at that point. Or maybe it's also a reminder for me to like do something that maybe I made a note to do a few weeks ago that wasn't time sensitive, but it pings me to like, okay, now it's time to like follow up and get this vendor's cell phone number or get their insurance certificate or something like that. So yeah, really it's a lot of Google like my Google Calendar is kind of like my to-do list at this point, pretty much.
Totally. And Google actually does have sort of like an integration where you can use something called canned responses. So you can save those templates directly in Google, and then you click that little like caret at the bottom right hand, and you can pull it in directly and then personalize it from there. I use it. It's really helpful.
One thing actually that I didn't mention that I think is helpful is doing kind of beta testing with how you respond. So like if you're contemplating doing an autoresponder, maybe try it out for a few weeks and see like actually, again, this is where the nerdy data part gets in, but like actually track. So like, okay, I've done an autoresponder for 3 weeks, I had this many inquiries and like this many people actually emailed me back after getting the autoresponder versus this is the number of people that actually emailed me back after getting a more custom email. And then you can actually see like, is it, because for some people it's great for certain businesses, for other ones, like you want a personal response. So I think it's a good way you can just kind of like test it out.
It's a really good point. Gotta love A/B testing.
Yeah.
So how do you manage payroll and booking for assistants?
Not like nothing really fancy. Again, Excel spreadsheets, and my GoDaddy bookkeeping. So, I pay them like by check. So because checks obviously don't sync automatically with GoDaddy bookkeeping, I keep it on a spreadsheet. And when I do my end of the month reconciliations, I've like highlight in a different color which ones are new in my spreadsheet and have to go into my bookkeeping software. So manually. So like during the course of the month, I'll keep track of the amount that it was, which assistant it was, which wedding it was. And then at the end of the month, when I reconcile everything, I manually add that into GoDaddy bookkeeping. You could also, I mean, like, I guess if I wanted to do like a PayPal option, like send money to friends and family, that would automatically be connected with GoDaddy bookkeeping and would automatically show up there. So I wouldn't have to remember to put it in.
Okay. What goes in your wedding handbook?
Literally everything. I am one of those people that I have a really good memory, but I don't want to have to rely on my memory on a wedding day. I want everything written down and at what time it has to happen. So if it's like, I need to put favors out, I put that on my timeline because even though they're there and I'll probably see them, I don't want to forget to accidentally put out somebody's favors. So my main Word document has like the day of timeline. It has any setup instructions. So if the couple has like certain personal items or if they want their place setting a certain way, like I will have all the notes about all the different setup things that have to happen. And I make sure like I'm crossing all those off as the day goes on. It includes a detailed hair and makeup schedule if there's a bride. It includes payment information. So if anybody had any payments due the day of, I have it in a handy way where I could just quickly look and see like, oh, this is how much they were owed. If they were like, oh, the check is short, that kind of thing. And then I have a page that has all of the vendor day of contact information. So that way, like I'm not sifting through a bunch of things. And then separate from that, I'll have like printed out, obviously a floor plan. And then I kind of have like a bunch of backup documents. So I'll have printed the final rental order, if there's like the seating assignment chart or just their seating assignments in general, I like to have on hand, kind of like my general notes document. But really the only things I'm referencing the day of ideally are the like main handbook document and the floor plan.
Awesome. So many
things. I know this is why I do what I do and everyone thinks that I'm crazy. So
I mean, now I feel like I have to go automate my life. I don't think my husband's going to like it.
But if you're, okay, so if we're talking about implementing these things like in non-business related ways, like people's birthdays, birthday cards. So I've been notorious in the past for like forgetting like maybe a Mother's Day or a Father's Day card.
It's coming up. Mother's Day is coming.
Yes. So like having an annual reminder that's like 2 weeks out, like buy Mother's Day cards or something like that is really helpful. My husband, he's going to kill me for saying this. He's really bad about remembering birthdays. And so he could really... he could use having like calendar reminders to like buy people's cards 2 weeks out.
Yeah. Like for you?
No. Usually, no. Tend not. Sometimes he,
Okay.
Usually he's pretty good.
I need to start
Other
just
family
sneaking
members.
those reminders into my shared calendar with
Yeah.
my husband.
Yeah.
Because then maybe I'd actually get a
Yeah.
card.
Well, I've offered to have my husband put his like families into my calendar so that I can bug him, but I'm like, that's even too micromanaging for me.
I mean, I do that. If it's not in my calendar, he would never do it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Love you. Oops. So do you print out your wedding handbook?
Yes. Which I fully admit is not totally environmentally conscious, but because I know some people do it like on iPads and stuff like that. I do print it. I feel like it's a carryover from being an attorney where there is unfortunately a lot of paper involved, but I kind of need to have something printed.
But I also feel like your battery could die on an iPad.
True.
Like I get it.
Yeah.
I feel like paper is sometimes a security blanket.
Yeah. Well, because if I had it all electronically and something happened, I would be in really
like Google goes down.
I would be in really big trouble.
Me too. Yes, that's awesome. Wow. I feel like there's
lots of info.
I feel like you probably all have crazy to-do lists now. And Sunny, I'm so glad you're a paper person too. Yes. But
Perfect.
So many things to do now.
Yeah, lots of things.
Good.
Start slow. Like obviously don't try to dive in and tackle all this stuff at once. But like, take a look at your inquiry process and see what can make your life a little bit easier there. And also figure out your level of comfort for doing stuff. Like, do you just want to automate and not have to touch anything? Do you want to like be in more close contact with your couples? It's going to be different for everybody.
Absolutely. So go follow Leah on Instagram, ColourPop Events. Same on Facebook, Twitter, everything.
Yeah.
We will make sure that you have her information in the email that we send out. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was so fun. And thanks for the tree to be here. Yeah. Awesome. Well, go enjoy the rest of your Thursday and best of luck if you have an event this weekend. We'll see you soon.
Bye.